Come join us.
We're children to learn the word too.
Children to learn the words too.
Shabbat Shalom. Come join us.
Shabbat Shalom. Come join us. Happy Sabbath. Come join us.
Welcome to Israel's Church of Living God Learning Center. For mine house should be called a house of prayer for all people.
Come join us.
Come join us.
Happy Sabbath. Come join us.
Thank you for joining us.
Happy Sabbath and thank you for joining us.
Shabbat Shalom. Love you.
Join us on the Sabbath at Israel's Church of the Living God Learning Center, located at 1225 South Elmwood Avenue in Waukegan, Illinois. Services starts at 1:30 p.m. You can also visit us online at israelschurch.org. Here you can check our holy days and other events, as well as find out more about our church organization. If you are unable to come out and worship with us, you can also worship with us on our live stream on YouTube at ICOTLG 567 or on our Facebook page at Israel's Church of the Living God. If you are in need of prayer or counseling or more information, you may call us at 847-246-4421 or at 847-636-4792. We look forward to hearing from you.
Hi, welcome to Israel Church of the Living God Learning Center. Come join us.
Let us not forsake the assembling of ourselves together.
Come join us. Come join us.
We're children to learn the word too.
Children to learn the words too.
Shabbat Shalom. Come join us.
Shabbat Shalom. Come join us. Happy Sabbath. Come join us.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Israel's Church of Living God Q&A. Your a teacher for tonight, Brother Rodney or Brother Russ. And we got Rob reading tonight and Brother Terrell on the controls. We're going to open up with a prayer.
The mighty God, even the Lord, had spoken and called the earth from the rising of the sun unto the going down thereof. Out of Zion, the perfection of beauty, God hath shined. our God shall come, and shall not keep silent. A fire shall devour before him, and it shall be very tempestuous round about him. He shall call to his heavens from above, and to the earth, that he may judge his people. Gather my saints together unto me, those that have made a covenant with me by sacrifice. And the heavens shall declare his righteousness, for God is judge himself. Selah. I have read Psalms chapter 50, 1 through 6. May the Lord add a blessing to the hearing and doing of his holy and mighty word. In the name of Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior, we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Brother Rob. So, like I said, welcome to Israel's Church of the Living God Q&A. We're going to do a short lesson, and then we're going to open up the phone lines for anybody who want to call in. The conference call number is 605-313-4166, and the code is 196899, and hit the pound sign. All right. So the Sabbath out of the New Testament, the Sabbath out of the New Testament, that is the title for tonight's Q&A lesson, the Sabbath out of the New Testament. So, Brother Rob, we're going to start this off in Hebrews, the 4th chapter, and verse 1. And we're going to show you that the Sabbath is not only in the Old Testament, but it's also in the New Testament. Even I could have did a lesson, the law out of the New Testament. I think I'm going to be doing that sometime coming up soon. But we're going to show you the Sabbath out of the New Testament, because some people think that the Sabbath is done away with and that we don't have to keep it anymore. But I'm going to show you that the Sabbath is even according to the New Testament. Yes, sir. No, yes. We're going to Hebrews 4 and 1. Hebrews 4 and 1. Hebrews. You got those scriptures, right?
Yeah, I got Proverbs 4 and 1.
That's Hebrews. That must be my writing. Hebrews 4 and 1. When you get it, brother, go ahead and start.
Hebrews chapter 4, verse 1. Let us therefore fear, lest a promise being left us of entering unto his rest.
Now, we could go into this rest part where, this rest is talking about the Lord's Sabbath, the ultimate Sabbath, the seventh day in which the Lord is going to reign for 1,000 years. That is the day of rest. And that's what day of rest, that's what Sabbath means, day of rest. But we're not going to get into that part. But go ahead and read.
Any of you should seem to come short of it. For unto us was the gospel preached, as well as unto them. But the word preached did not profit them, not being mixed with faith in them that heard it. For we which believe do enter into rest.
For we which believe do enter into rest. Go ahead and read.
As he said, as I have sworn in my wrath, if they shall enter into my rest, although their works were finished from the foundation of the world. For he spake of a certain place of the seventh day.
So he spake in a certain place of the seventh day. And we're going to find out where this place is. He said he spake in a certain place of the seventh day on this wise. Because that's what day the Sabbath day is. Now here we are, we're looking at the Sabbath day or the day of rest right here in Hebrews, the 4th chapter. He spake in this wise on the seventh day, not the first day, but the seventh day. Go ahead and read.
And God did rest the seventh day from all his works. And in this place again, if they shall enter into my rest.
Now, we're going to stop right there. So God rested on the seventh day, right? So let's go back and see where he spake of this certain place of the seventh day. Let's go to Genesis, the 2nd chapter. Genesis 2, and we're going to pick it up at verse 2. Genesis 2 and 2. When you get it, brother, go ahead and read.
And on the seventh day, God ended from his works which he had made. And he rested on the seventh day.
And he rested on the seventh day. So this is what the writer was talking about over in Hebrews, the fourth chapter. He spake in a certain place of the seventh day, and he did rest on the seventh day, right?
Right.
Read that again.
And on the seventh day, God ended his work, which he had made. And he rested on the seventh day from all his work, which he had made. And God blessed the seventh day.
And he blessed the seventh day. He didn't bless the first day, the second day, the third day, the fourth day, the fifth day, the sixth day. He blessed the seventh day. Now, some people say, well, that was for the children of Israel. Well, there's no Israelites right here. There's not even a man yet right here. So God instituted the seventh day Sabbath before there was even a man. Go ahead and read.
And God blessed the seventh day and sanctified it. Because in it had that he had rested from all his work which God had created and made.
So this is the day that he blessed it, and this the day that he rested on. It is the seventh day. Now, let's go to Leviticus. Let's see what he called this seventh day. Let's go to Leviticus, the 23rd chapter. Let's see what he called this seventh day. Leviticus 23 and 1. Leviticus 23 and 1. When you get it, go ahead and read.
And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying.
Now, we're going to stop right there. Skip to verse 3. Go ahead.
6 days shall work be done, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of rest.
Oh, so this is what he calls this seventh day? It is a Sabbath of rest, and that's what Sabbath means, day of rest. So he says 6 days shall work be done, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of rest. So right here we have the Sabbath day. Go ahead and read.
And holy convocation. Ye shall do no work therein. It is the Sabbath of the Lord in all your dwellings.
It is the Sabbath of the Lord in all of your dwellings. But did the Lord just institute the Sabbath day for the Old Testament and not the New Testament? That's what we got to find out. Let's go now. Let's go to Malachi, the 3rd chapter. Malachi, the 3rd chapter. We're going to pick it up at verse 6. Malachi 3 and 6. When you get it, brother, go ahead and read. Malachi 3 and 6.
Malachi 3 and 6. For I am the Lord. I change not.
Stop right there. You see that? So if he says he changes not, then that means if he instituted it in the Old Testament, then it is good in the New Testament.
That's right.
Otherwise, he would have changed then, right?
Right.
Start that again.
For I am the Lord, I change not. Therefore, ye sons of Jacob, and are not consumed.
They are not consumed. But so, like I said, if he had to change the Sabbath, then that means he changed then, right? But he said, I am the Lord God, and I change not. So we should be able to see the Sabbath in the New Testament and beyond that if he changes not. Is that right?
Right.
Let's go now. Let's go to Hebrews, the 9th chapter. Hebrews 9. Hebrews 9. Because let's look and see who instituted the new covenant or the New Testament. Hebrews 9, and we're going to pick it up at verse 15. Hebrews 9 and 15. When you get it, brother, start reading.
And for this cause, he is the mediator of the New Testament.
Talking about Jesus, right?
Right.
He is the mediator of the New Testament.
That by means of death, for the redemption of the transgressions that were under the First Testament.
Meaning his blood is going to cover those people under the New Testament as well. But go ahead.
They which are called might receive the promise of eternal inheritance. There must also a necessity be the death of the testator.
So now the testament, meaning that's the covenant. Testament, covenant, same thing. So now he said, for where a testament is, there must also necessity be the death of the testator. So the testator, which is Jesus, has to die for this covenant or this testament to go to be enforced. He's going to tell you in the next verse. Go ahead and read verse 17.
For a testament is of force after men are dead.
See, the testament, it goes into the testament is enforced after men are dead. So before Jesus died, we still had the Old Testament. But after he died, then we have the New Testament. The Testament is enforced after men are dead. Go ahead and read.
Otherwise, it is of no strength at all while the testator lives.
So we wouldn't even have a testament had Jesus not died and shedded his blood. We wouldn't even have the New Testament. Now, let's go now. So now this testament is of force after Jesus died. But let's go to Matthew, the 28th chapter. Because this is after Jesus died right here. Matthew 28, and we're going to pick it up at verse 1. Matthew 28 and 1. Because, you know, some people always say that, you know, well, since Jesus died, we don't have to keep the law no more. Since Jesus died, we don't have to keep the Sabbath no more. Since Jesus died, we don't have to do this, we don't have to do that no more. Well, we are going to see. Because I could have showed you some the feast days in the New Testament. We could have went right to Acts, the 2nd chapter, when the day of Pentecost was fully come. Mm-hmm. Now, if it's no good, then how is it fully coming then? Well, we're dealing with the Sabbath. Matthew 28 and 1. Go ahead and read it.
In the end of the Sabbath, as it began to dawn toward the first day of the week.
Now, stop right there. Now, you see what he just said? In the end of the Sabbath, as it began to dawn toward the first day of the week. What's the first day of the week? No, it's not Monday. Monday is not the first day of the week. Sunday is the first day of the week. Right? And so then the Sabbath day would be the 7th day. Is that right? Because there's only 7 days in a week.
That's right.
So the Sabbath day would be the 7th day. But he said in the end of the Sabbath, as it began to dawn toward the first day of the week. Go ahead and read. We're going to read down into this. Go ahead.
Came Mary Magdalene and the other Mary to see the sepulchre. And behold, there was a great earthquake, for the angel of the Lord descended from heaven and came and rolled back the stone from the door and sat upon it. His countenance was
now
like
remember
lightning.
Now, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary, they got there at the end of the Sabbath as it was dawning toward the first day of the week. That's when they got there. But go ahead and read.
3.
So excuse me one second. So far, we see that we got the Sabbath day, and then we got the first day of the week. Right. So we got what we call Saturday, and then we got Sunday. Now, we're going to find out, because the testament don't go in force until after men are dead, right? So let's find out, was Jesus dead at this time? Go ahead and read. What verse?
Matthew 28 and 3.
Go ahead.
His countenance was like lightning, and his raiment white as snow.
Now this is the angel that they saw. Go ahead and read.
And for fear of him, the keepers did shake and become as dead men. And the angels answered and said unto the women, Fear ye not, for I know that ye seek Jesus, which was crucified.
Stop right there. So when Jesus was crucified, that means he died, then, right?
Right.
He died. So right now we see that Jesus, he's telling them that Jesus was crucified, so he is dead at this point. Go ahead and read. So the testament don't go in force till after men are dead, right?
That's right.
Read that verse again.
5. And the angel answered and said unto the woman, Fear ye not, for I know that ye seek Jesus, which was crucified.
Which was crucified. In other words, he was killed. Go ahead and read.
He is not here.
He is not here.
For he is risen. And he said, Come, see the place where the Lord lay.
Now, wait a minute. So now the testament going forth after men are dead. So the New Testament is in force, right? Because Jesus is dead, right?
Right.
But you still got the Sabbath day and the first day of the week. How is that if the Sabbath is done away with? How is that? The Sabbath was not done away with. That's why we still see the Sabbath day in verse 1 in the first day of the week, because the Sabbath day is still good. It is still good. He said, he is not here, for he is risen. As he said, come and see the place where the Lord lay. He had even risen at this time. And no, he didn't rise on the first day of the week. He rose on the seventh day of the week, at the end of the Sabbath, as it dawned toward the first day of the week. Mary Magdalene and the other Mary got there to the sepulchre. When they got there, he was gone already. So what day did Jesus rise on then? It was the Sabbath. That's right. Not the first day of the week. But we still got the Sabbath day and the first day of the week after Jesus died and rose from the grave. Now, let's go to Exodus, the 31st chapter, Exodus 31. Exodus 31. And we're going to pick it up at verse 15. Now, why do we still have the Sabbath day after Jesus died and rose from the grave? Not only just died, but rose from the grave as well. Why do we still have the Sabbath day? Exodus 31, and pick it up at verse 15. Go ahead and read it.
6 days may work be done, but in the seventh is the Sabbath of rest, holy to the Lord.
Go ahead.
Whosoever doeth any work in the Sabbath day, he shall surely be put to death.
Anybody that does any work on the Sabbath day shall surely, you see how serious this is? If you do any work on this day, he say you shall surely be put to death. No ifs, ands, and buts about it. Go ahead and read.
Wherefore the children of Israel shall keep the Sabbath, to observe the Sabbath throughout their generations, for a perpetual covenant.
What, do you know what perpetual means? That is an everlasting covenant. And I could go and show you in Isaiah the 56th chapter that if the stranger, if he wants to serve the God of Israel, he has to keep the Sabbath as well.
That's right.
So you see what he just said? He said this is a perpetual covenant. Perpetual means an everlasting covenant. If God said this is an everlasting covenant, then what man can do away with it? Because God didn't do away with it. So what man can do away with it? That is impossible. But we already saw in Matthew 28 chapter in verse 1 at the end of the Sabbath, as it began to dawn toward the first day of the week, after Jesus had died, and not only died, but rose from the grave. But that's why the Sabbath was still in place in Matthew 28:1, because it is a perpetual covenant. Perpetual means everlasting. Read that verse 16 again.
Wherefore the children of Israel shall keep the Sabbath, to observe the Sabbath throughout their generations, for a perpetual covenant.
For a perpetual covenant. And we are a generation. So we are to still keep the Lord's seventh-day Sabbath, not the first day of the week Sabbath, but because I read, doing some research, saying that the first day of the week, some Christians call that the Sabbath, but they're not doing the things that the Bible requires you to do on the Sabbath day, and not do on the Sabbath day. Because some people, they working. Some people, they go to church, and then when they get out of church, they go home and cook that Sunday meal. You're not supposed to kindle no fire on the Sabbath. You're not supposed to do your pleasures on the Sabbath. Because some people on Sunday, they watching football or doing their pleasures, out washing their car, whatever. Doing their pleasures and working. Verse 17, go ahead and read.
It is a sign between me and the children of Israel forever.
For how long?
Forever.
Forever. Forever. Go ahead and read.
For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, and on the seventh day he rested and was refreshed.
Now, we could stop right here, but I got to take you to the New Testament and show it, because that's the name of the lesson. The Sabbath out of the New Testament. Because he said the children of Israel, they're supposed to do this forever. And we are the children of Israel. And anybody going to sojourn with the children of Israel, they got to keep the Sabbath too. Let's go now. Let's go to Acts, the 13th chapter. Acts 13. And we're going to pick it up at verse 14. Acts 13 and 14. Go ahead and read it, Rob.
But when they departed from Perga, they came to Antioch in Pisidia, and went unto the synagogue on the Sabbath day and sat down.
Now, wait a minute. This is Acts. This showing up the New Testament right here. So now, what are they still doing keeping the Sabbath right here? Go ahead and read.
And after the reading of the law and the prophets, the rulers of the synagogue
I'll tell you what, we're going to start this over. Let's see who this is that went into the synagogue on the Sabbath day. Let's bag up to verse 13.
Okay.
Read that, yeah.
Now when Paul...
Because this is everybody's beloved Paul. Mine too, but I'm just saying. This is everybody's beloved Paul right here. Verse 13. Go ahead and read it.
Now when Paul and his company loosed from Paphos and came to Perga in Pamphylia, and John, departing from them, returned to Jerusalem. But when they departed from Perga, they came to Antioch in Pisidia, and went into the synagogue on the Sabbath day and sat down.
Now, wait a minute. Why were they congregating on the Sabbath day, and then Paul went into where they were congregating on the Sabbath? If the Sabbath is done away with, why are they congregating? And why did Paul and his companions go into the synagogue on this day? Because the Sabbath day is still good, and we are in the New Testament. But go ahead and read.
And after the reading of the law and the prophets, the rulers of the synagogue...
Wait a minute, they're doing what? The reading the law and the prophets? Yeah. Well, wait a minute. Shouldn't Paul be a New Testament Christian? Because, see, that's why, people look at us and like, y'all read the New Testament too? Yes. We read the Old Testament and the New Testament.
That's right.
So we see Paul and them, they read in the Old Testament. Why? Because that's all they had was the Old Testament. Read that verse again. Somebody need to hear this. Go ahead and read.
And after reading of the law and the prophets, the rulers of the synagogue sent unto them, saying, Ye men and brethren, if ye have any word of exhortation for the people, say on.
So now, Paul, if the law and the prophets are good enough for Paul and his companions, good enough for me too. Skip to verse 26. Skip to verse 26. Go ahead.
Men and brethren, children of the stock of Abraham, and whosoever among you feareth God.
He said, and whosoever among you in the fear of God. So this goes for anybody else of another nation. He said, men and brothers, children of the stock of Abraham, talking about the children of Israel, and whosoever among you that fear God. Go ahead and read.
To you is the word of this salvation sent. For they that dwell at Jerusalem and their rulers, because they knew him not, nor yet the voices of the prophets which are read every Sabbath day.
Ooh, wait a minute. You see that? The prophets are read every Sabbath day. Every Sabbath day. Go ahead and read.
They have fulfilled them in condemning him.
Now, let's go now. I'm gonna throw this one in. Let's go to Acts the 18th chapter. Say the prophets are read every Sabbath day. Acts the 18th chapter. I'm gonna throw this in there. Acts 18, and we're gonna pick it up at verse 1. Go ahead and read it.
After these things, Paul departed from Athens and came to Corinth, and found a certain Jew named Aquila, born in Pontus, lately come from Italy, which with his wife Priscilla, because that Claudius had commanded all the Jews to depart from Rome, and came unto them. And because he was of the same craft, he abode with them, and wrought. For by their occupation they were tent makers.
See, Paul, he worked. All the apostles worked. They were fishermen. But verse 4, what does that say?
And he reasoned in the synagogue every Sabbath.
Every Sabbath?
Every Sabbath.
Just like we just read in Acts the 13th chapter, the law and the prophets were read every Sabbath. So now here we got Paul in the city. He said, and he reasoned in the synagogue every Sabbath. Now, this is in the New Testament now, and this is our beloved brother Paul. He reasoned in the synagogue every Sabbath. Who was there?
And persuaded the Jews and the Greeks.
Oh, he persuaded the Jews and the Greeks. And we're not talking about Greeks, Israelites, or Israelite Greeks. We're talking about Greeks meaning Gentiles.
That's right.
This is who he's persuading. Israelites and Greeks, or Jews and Greeks, on the Sabbath day. And you only see the Sabbath day as far as the weekly Sabbath go. It's only one day in the Bible, and that is the seventh day. You can't find another weekly Sabbath. Because some people say, well, every day is a Sabbath day. Read that to me. Read that to me. Well, every day. And then, if every day is a Sabbath day, when are you going to work? Because you're not supposed to be working on the Sabbath. Because if you work on the Sabbath, the Lord said he should surely be put to death. That's right. Because how you going to eat? How you going to cook? You're not supposed to kindle a fire. You're not supposed to do your pleasures.
It's a lot of rest.
I'm telling you, a lot of rest, ain't it? You had a holy convocation, then you rest. That's it. When you going to work? So every day can't be the Sabbath. And then you never see in the Bible where the first day of the week is a Sabbath day. I'm talking about the weekly Sabbath now. I'm not talking, because the Sabbath day that he tells you to keep was the day of Pentecost on the first day of the week. Nobody want to keep that one, which is a feast day. And that always falls on the first day of the week. And it is a high Sabbath, but nobody wants to keep that first day of the week, the Pentecost. Mm-hmm. Now, let's go to Isaiah, the 66th chapter. Now, this is end time prophecy we are dealing with right here. Isaiah 66. And we're going to pick it up at verse 22. Isaiah 66 and 22. Look at what the book says. Verse 22. Go ahead.
For as the new heavens and the new earth, which I will make, shall remain before me, saith the Lord, so shall your seed and your name remain.
So now he's telling them about the new heaven and the new earth. He said, so shall your seed remain before me. Go ahead and read.
And it shall come to pass that from one new moon
now he's
to
talking
another.
about the same time. He's saying it shall come to pass that from one new moon to another, because we're going to deal with that new moon, because, you know, you got people still talking about there's a floating Sabbath. So read that verse 23 again.
And it shall come to pass that from one new moon to another, and from one Sabbath to another, shall all flesh come to worship before me,
shall
saith the
all
Lord.
flesh come to worship. Now this is on the Sabbath day. You see that? And the new moon and the Sabbath day, that's 2 different days. 2 different days. But this is end time prophecy. This is when at the coming of the Lord. He said, as the new heavens and the new earth, the new heaven and new earth which I will make shall remain before me, saith the Lord. So shall your seed and your name remain, and it shall come to pass that from one new moon to another, and from one Sabbath to another, shall all flesh come to worship before me, saith the Lord. Now we're gonna really put a time on it. Look at what time this is. Read that verse 24.
And they shall go forth and look upon the carcasses of the men that have transgressed against me. For their worm shall not die, neither shall their fire be quenched, and they shall be an abhorring unto all flesh.
You know what this is talking about? This is talking about the second resurrection, when men are going to be thrown into the lake of fire.
That's right.
And we still got the Sabbath day. You see this? We still got the Sabbath. So the Sabbath in the New Testament is good. Just like it was good in the Old Testament, it's good in the New Testament, and it's good right now. It is good right now. And there you have it, the Sabbath out of the New Testament. Now, do we got anybody on the phone lines? Do we got the phone lines open? All right. So while he opens up the phone lines, we're going to answer this question on can we heal in this generation? In other words, can you like lay hands on somebody or pray over somebody and they get healed? All right, let's find out. Let's go to Psalms 100. Okay, Psalms 100. Psalms 100. And we are going to pick it up at verse 5. Psalms 100 and verse 5. When you get it, Rob, go ahead and read it.
For the Lord is good, his mercy is everlasting, and his truth endureth unto all generations.
So now his truth endureth to all generations. So which means that if there were if there was healing by men in the Old Testament, and if there were healing by men in the New Testament, we can heal now. Because his truth endures to all generations. Let me show you what I'm talking about. First, let's go to 2 Kings, the 4th chapter. 2 Kings 4. And we are going to pick it up at verse 38. Over here is where Elisha, he healed the poisonous pottage that the men had started eating. We have 1 Kings, the 4th chapter, verse 38. Go ahead and read it.
And Elisha came again to Gilgal, and there was a dearth in the land, and the sons of the prophets were sitting before him. And he said unto his servants, Sit on the great pot, and seeth pottage for the sons of the prophets.
So now, they had a famine in the land at this time. So they going out, they getting stuff off the vine. But it was a poisonous vine. So they getting ready to sit down and eat, though. Verse 39, go ahead.
And one went out unto the field to gather herbs.
See, he gathered some herbs. Go ahead and read.
And found a wild vine, and gathered thereof wild gourds, his lap full.
So he took a lap full of them. You know, we get ready to eat this. We get ready to eat these herbs because there was a famine in the land at this time. Go ahead and read.
And came and shred them into the pot of pottage. For they knew them not.
That just goes to show you, boy, you get hungry enough, you're going to eat something. Be it herbs or whatever it is, you're going to eat something. And I was reading about the Irish, how they had a famine in Ireland, and they were digging up the potatoes out of the ground, eating them. But then they were running out of potatoes, so a lot of people passed away from that. But go ahead and read.
40. So they poured out for the men to eat. And it came to pass, as they were eating of the pottage, that they cried out and said, O thou man of God.
Talking to Elisha, O thou man of God.
There is death in the pot.
There is death in the pot. Somebody must have died. Or a couple of people must have died. They're like, wait a minute. There's death in the pot. In other words, this pottage is killing people. Go ahead and read.
And they could not eat thereof. But he said, Then bring meal, and he cast it into the pot.
So now he said, bring me some meal, and then he mixed it in the pot that had the poisonous herbs in it. Go ahead and read.
And he said, Pour out for the people.
Go ahead.
That they may eat. And there was no harm in the pot.
And then, so he healed this pottage, right? He healed the pottage and healed the people that were eating this pottage, or stopped the people from eating this pottage till after he healed the pottage. Now, let's go to Matthew 10 and 1. Because the Lord is going to give the apostles some orders over here. Matthew 10 and 1. Matthew 10 and 1. When you get it, go ahead and read.
And when he had called unto him his 12 disciples, he gave them power against unclean spirits.
So he gave them power against unclean spirits. What else?
To cast them out. And to heal all manner of sickness.
And to heal all manner of sicknesses.
And all manner of disease.
And all manner of disease. So we see that in the Old Testament they could heal. And now we see that the Lord gave orders and gave the apostles power to heal all manners of sickness and diseases. So the question is, can we heal in this generation? I say yes. Because let's go over to 1 Corinthians, the 12th chapter. 1 Corinthians 12. And we're going to pick it up at verse 1. 1 Corinthians 12 and 1. This question was answered or asked on social media. 1 Corinthians 12. And when a person that asks a question, I hope that you are listening tonight or you view this video. 12 and pick up that verse 1 first. Go ahead.
Now concerning spiritual gifts, brethren, I would not have you be ignorant.
So now he said concerning spiritual gifts, because this is a gift. If you got the gift of healing, that is a gift from God. Nothing you did yourself or miraculously or some miracle or dare I use the word magic or anything. You understand? You didn't do nothing. The Lord is one heal. If you can heal somebody, he heals them through you. He is the one that does the healing through men. Skip the verse, same way he do it with the doctors, right? He gives the doctors the understanding to heal people, to do surgery. So skip to verse 8. Skip to verse 8. In this case, we're looking at people being healed spiritually. So, and physically too. But skip to verse 8. Go ahead and read.
For to one is given by the Spirit the word of wisdom.
So some men by the Spirit are given the word of wisdom, meaning they understand what thus saith the Lord. And they can go and teach it. We go ahead and read.
To another, the word of knowledge by the same Spirit.
Go ahead.
To another, faith by the same Spirit. To another, the gifts of healing.
To another, the gifts of healing. So can we heal in this generation? Yes. That is a gift from God. Read that verse again, Rob.
To another, faith by the same Spirit. To another, the gifts of healing by the same Spirit.
Go ahead.
To another, the working of miracles. To another, prophesy. And to another, discerning of the spirits.
Look at all these gifts that God gives to men. To another, the working of miracles. To another, prophecy. To another, discerning of spirits. To
another, diverse kinds of tongues.
To another, diverse kinds of tongues. What does it mean? He gives them the understanding to learn to know other languages and to understand other languages. Not that hamdallah, shamdallah, that's not no language. That's not a language. That's glossolalia. You speaking in unintelligible language. Nobody can understand it. You can't even understand it.
That's right.
And then, if you speak in this hamdallah, shamdallah, hamdallah, and all of these things, then you're supposed to be able to interpret it. Otherwise, Paul said in 1 Corinthians, the 14th chapter, that you need to shut your mouth. You finish that verse 10?
No.
Go ahead.
To another, the interpretation of tongues.
And to another, now how can you interpret hamdallah, shamdallah, hamdallah? How can you interpret that?
You can't.
The person that said it can't even interpret it. So when you speak in a tongue, you must be able to interpret it. But you see, the gift of healing by the same Spirit. So in this generation, yes, we can heal. Now, we're going to deal with another question about the floating Sabbath. You know, people are still saying that there is a such thing as a floating Sabbath, meaning the weekly Sabbath. And it is according to the new moon. So I'm just going to give you an example of the new moon. So the new moon fell here in January on Thursday, the 11th. So if you count 6 days from there, because the first day of that month that's the new moon, because that's what moon means, month. So the new moon will be the first day of that month. So if you count 6 more days, then you would come to Wednesday. So for 4 weeks, the Sabbath day would be on a Wednesday. And if it fell on a Tuesday, then the Sabbath day would be, if the new moon fell on a Tuesday, then the Sabbath day would be on a Thursday. A Monday. A Monday. So for the next 4 weeks, the Sabbath day would be on a Monday. That is what they call the floating Sabbath, which means the Sabbath day moves according to the new moon. Now, let's go and show you that this is not true according to the scriptures. Let's go to Genesis, the 1st chapter. Because we're going to go over here and see where the Lord instituted the moon. Genesis, the 1st chapter, we're going to pick it up at verse 14. Genesis 1 and 14. Will you get it, Rob? Go ahead and read it.
And God said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night. And let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years.
Now, he said, let there be lights in the firmament of heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and for years. Go ahead and read.
And let them be for lights in the firmament of the heavens to give light upon the earth. And it was so.
Go ahead.
And God made 2 great lights. The greater light to rule the day.
Stop right there. So we know that that's the sun. That's the greater light that rule the day.
And the lesser light to rule the night.
And the lesser light to rule the night, that is the moon.
He made the stars also.
He made the stars also. So we see that God made these 2 great lights. Keep reading.
And God set them in the firmament of heaven to give light upon the earth, and to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the night and to divide the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good.
Now wait a minute. Do you see anything about the Sabbath day?
No.
You see, we don't even have the Sabbath day yet. But we already read about the Sabbath day in Genesis 2nd chapter, and we saw nothing about the moon. You don't get the moon till right here in Genesis, the 1st chapter. Read that verse 19.
And the evening and the morning were the 4th day.
And the evening and the morning were the 4th day. Now, let's go to Psalms 104. Psalms 104, and we're going to pick it up at verse 19. Psalms 104 and verse 19. We're going to read one verse. Verse 19. When you get it, brother, go ahead and read. Psalms 104 and 19.
He appointed the moon for seasons. The sun knoweth his going down.
Now, we read that in Genesis, the 1st chapter, right?
Right.
He said, let the sun and the moon be for signs and for seasons, right? And for years. So now he said he appointed the moon for seasons. The sun north is going down. Is that right? True. Let's go back to Genesis, the 2nd chapter. Because we read this earlier, but we're going to read it again. Genesis 2. And this is where he instituted the Sabbath. Now, we saw where he gave you the new moon, or not the new moon, but the moon, and now we're going to see where he gave you the Sabbath. We got Genesis 2 and 2. Go ahead and read it.
And on the 7th day, God ended his work from which he had made. And he rested on the 7th day from all his work which he had made. And God blessed the 7th day and sanctified it, because that in it he had rested from all his work which God created and made.
Now, do you see anything about a new moon right here?
No.
You don't see nothing about new moon. So how do you get this thing where there's a floating Sabbath according to the new moon? How do you get this? And then he told you that he rested on the 7th day. And we're looking at the 7th day of the week right here. Now, let's go to Leviticus 23. Leviticus 23. And tell me how you're going to do this right here. Leviticus 23, because this right here we get ready to read about is the Feast of Weeks, which we call Pentecost. But tell me how you're going to get this feast right here if you got the new moon and you calculated the weekly Sabbath according to the new moon. How can you get this day right here? Leviticus 23 and 9. Leviticus 23 and 9. Go ahead and read it.
And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, When ye be come into the land which I give unto you, and shall reap the harvest thereof, then ye shall bring a sheaf of the first fruits of your harvest unto the priest. And he shall wave the sheaf before the Lord, to be accepted for you. On the morrow after the Sabbath, the priest shall wave it.
Now this sheep represents Jesus, but we'll get into that at another lesson. Skip to verse 15. Skip to verse 15. Go ahead and read it.
And he shall count unto you from the morrow after the Sabbath, from the day that ye brought the sheaf of the wave offering. 7 Sabbaths shall be complete.
Now wait a minute. So now he says 7 Sabbaths shall be complete. How many days is that?
49.
49 days. Go ahead and read.
Even unto the morrow after the 7th Sabbath shall ye number 50 days.
Now, wait a minute. The morrow after the Sabbath, that's the first day of the week, right?
That's right.
So now he said you shall number 50 days. So how can you get the Feast of Weeks or the Feast of Harvest right here if you get the floating Sabbath according to the new moon?
You can't.
You can't get it because you need 7 Sabbaths in a row. So you're going to go over 50 days in order to get 7 Sabbaths in a row, plus the morrow after Sabbath is the first day of the week, which we call Sunday. So he said number 50 days. If you do it according to the way that they are saying, according to this floating Sabbath idea, then you will get more than 50 days, which means you can't have the Feast of Harvest or the Feast of Weeks or the Feast of Pentecost. You see how this floating Sabbath doesn't make any sense?
That's right.
It makes no sense. Now, so this is one of the scriptures that people try to use to get this floating Sabbath. Let's go over to 1 Samuel, the 20th chapter. 1 Samuel 20. And we're going to pick it up at verse 5. 1 Samuel 20 and verse 5. Now, over here, they were looking forward to getting together for the new moon. And so David going to tell Jonathan, hey, man, you know the new moon is coming up. But look at what it said right here. 1 Samuel 20, verse 5. Go ahead.
And David said unto Jonathan, Behold, tomorrow is the new moon.
Now, the new moon means that's going to be the first day of the month. Not the first day of the week, because the moon phases are the same from the time that the Lord created the moon till now. The moon phases are the same.
That's right.
So when you get the new moon, that means that it's dark or completely dark. That's the new moon. And the phases haven't changed. So he said, you know, tomorrow is the new moon. Go ahead and read.
And I should not fail to sit with the king at meat. But let me go, that I may hide myself in the field unto the 3rd day at even.
Because he had to check the waters, because Saul, Jonathan's father, which was king, he was looking to kill David or bring him some harm. At least this was in the mind of David and Jonathan, because they heard Saul, Jonathan's father, speaking ill of David. But he was looking for David to show up, right? Skip to verse, you finished at verse 6?
No.
Read it again.
If thy father at all miss me, then say, David earnestly asked leave of me that he might run to Bethlehem, his city, for there is a yearly sacrifice there for all the family.
There's a yearly sacrifice there for all his family, because they would get together for the new moon and have a feast for the new moon. But skip to verse 24. Go ahead and read it.
So David hid himself in the field. And when the new moon was come, the king sat him down to eat meat. And the king sat upon his seat, as at other times, even upon a seat by the wall. And Jonathan arose, and Aber sat by Saul's side, and David's place was empty.
Go ahead.
Nevertheless.
So David didn't show up right now. He didn't show up. So Saul is worried. Where's David at? But go ahead and read.
Nevertheless, Saul spake not anything that day, for he thought something had befallen him. He is not clean.
Go ahead.
Surely he is not clean.
He is not clean. This is what Saul's saying about David. Verse 27. Go ahead.
And it came to pass on the morrow.
Stop right there. And it came to pass on the morrow. So that would be what? The second day of the month. Not the second day of the week.
That's right.
But the second day of the month. New moon means that's the first day of the month, not the first day of the week. So now he said, and it came to pass, read that again.
And it came to pass on the morrow, which was the second day of the month.
Which was what?
The second day of the month.
The second day of the month, not the second day of the week. Go ahead and read.
That David's place was empty. And Saul said unto Jonathan his son, wherefore cometh not the son of Jesse to meet? Neither yesterday nor today.
He didn't come on the new moon. Neither did he come on the second day of the month. Not the second day of the week. Skip to verse 34. Go ahead and read it.
So Jonathan arose from the table in fierce anger, and did eat no meat the second day of the month.
The second day of the month. So they got together on the first day, and the second day, Jonathan and his father, but Jonathan got mad at this time. So he didn't eat meat on the second day of the month, not the second day of the week. But hold on one second. So tell me then, because we saw that the Sabbath day was a perpetual covenant, right?
Right.
Which means the everlasting covenant. Is that right?
That's right.
Now let's go to Joel, the second chapter. Joel 2. Joel 2. So tell me then, how you going to keep the Sabbath according to the new moon if this happens right here? Joel, the second chapter, and we're going to pick it up at verse 1. Joel 2 and 1. Tell me how you're going to keep the Sabbath according to the new moon when this happens. Joel 2 and 1. Go ahead and read it.
Blow ye the trumpet in Zion, and sound an alarm in my holy mountain. Let all the inhabitants of the land tremble.
Go ahead.
For the day of the Lord cometh. For it is nigh at hand.
So the day of the Lord is coming. What kind of day is this, Rob? Verse 2.
A day of darkness and of gloominess. A day of clouds and of thick darkness. As the morning spread upon the mountains.
Now this is the time when the Lord is going to pour out his wrath, or begin to pour out his wrath on this earth. Go ahead and read.
A great people and as strong. There had not been ever the like. Neither shall be any more after it. Even to the years of many generations.
So now there's going to be an army assembled at this time that has never been before and shall never be again. But that's another lesson. But this is talking end time prophecy. Skip to verse 10. Go ahead and read.
The earth shall quake before them. The heavens shall tremble. The sun and the moon shall be dark.
The sun and the moon shall be darkened.
And the stars shall withdraw their shine.
Now, wait a minute. So now how you going to keep the Sabbath day from the new moon now? If the moon is darkened. Go ahead and read. What verse you at? 10, right? You finished that?
Yes, sir.
Skip to verse 30. Skip to verse. Tell me how you're going to keep the Sabbath now from the new moon. If the moon is going to be darkened. Skip to verse 30. Skip to verse 30. Go ahead and read.
And I will show wonders in the heavens.
That's how we know there's no such thing as no floating Sabbath. Because how you going to keep the Sabbath according to the new moon if the Lord darkens the moon? How you going to keep it? Verse 30, go ahead and read.
And I will show wonders in the heavens and in the earth, blood and fire and pillars of smoke.
Go ahead.
The sun shall be turned into darkness.
The sun is going to be turned to darkness,
and the moon into blood.
So tell me how you're going to keep the Sabbath according to the new moon. If the sun going to be turned dark and the moon's going to be turned to blood, how you going to keep the Sabbath? Finish that.
Before the great and terrible day of the Lord comes.
Before the great and terrible day of the Lord cometh. This is talking end time prophecy. And the Sabbath day is perpetual covenant. So even during this time, we still have to keep the Sabbath. Somehow, some way, we still got to keep the Sabbath. Now, let's go to Revelations, the 6th chapter. This is going to be last. Revelation 6. And we're going to read one verse. That's verse 12. Revelation 6. Now, this is when the Lord is going to open up these seals, the 7th seal, and then a vial of wrath is going to be poured out. Look at this 6th seal right here he's going to open up. Verse 12. Go ahead and read it.
And I beheld when he had opened the 6th seal. And lo, there was a great earthquake.
Go ahead.
And the sun became black as sackcloth of hair. And the moon became as blood.
And the moon became as blood. How are you going to keep the Sabbath according to the new moon? You don't even know when it's going to turn. The moon, you can't even see the moon phases at this point. So how are you going to keep the Sabbath according to the new moon? You know what? You can't.
You can't. Right.
So the Lord's Sabbath day is etched in stone. It is the 7th day of the week. Then and now.